Jorge Masvidal captured the UFC's BMF title in the main event of UFC 244 yesterday. But today we look at why the Middle East is so important for the sport and the challenges faced by the MMA fighters here. Let's back up a little bit. In April, the UFC and Abu Dhabi's Department of Culture and Tourism announced a 5-year partnership that will see it hold more events in the future. The UFC held its first events in the city back in 2010 and 2014. Now, what works for Abu Dhabi is its infrastructure and facilities, in addition to the huge youth population with discretionary income and an affinity for the sport. Abu Dhabi Media and the UFC also announced a new broadcast partnership to provide access to all live UFC events and non-live programming as part of a multi-year agreement. In July, the announcement was followed by the unveiling of UFC Arabia app that includes live access to fights and hundreds of hours of programming. Now, let's talk about the event that was held in September and its impact on the region. The fight between Russian star Khabib and American Dustin Poirier, that is. According to STR's preliminary September 2019 data for Abu Dhabi, the fight brought about the market's largest daily increase in occupancy, up 33.1% on September 7, the day of the fight. The same day saw the second highest daily jump in revenue per available room, up by 37.3%. And Khabib alone earned more than $6 million following his victory over Poirier at UFC 242 in Abu Dhabi. That is nearly $500,000 for every single minute in the ring. For his last fight against Irishman Conor McGregor, Khabib was reportedly paid $2 million, the bulk of which was a share of pay-per-view, broadcasts, and other sources. But there is one huge problem. Not everyone gets paid this kind of salary. For the vast majority of MMA fighters who are based here in the Middle East, payouts like that are little more than a pipe dream. Dubai-based Russian-Lebanese fighter Roman Wehbi, for instance, knows all about fighting for peanuts, or $1,500 to be exact. He says the highest paycheck for most fighters working with local promoters in the GCC is approximately $3,000 per fight only. While local fighters are eligible for a $500 submission or performance bonus, the UFC's performance bonuses alone amount to $50,000, 4 of which were actually handed out following the Abu Dhabi event. For each of the sport's millionaires like Khabib or Conor McGregor, dozens, if not hundreds, of fighters barely scrape by, forced to prepare for fights while juggling the demands of a second job, which is, by the way, devoid of lucrative contracts, hefty bonuses, and training opportunities that the MMA's minority of stars depend on. Websites such as the Sports Daily estimate that several undercard fighters at the UFC 242 earned as little as $13,500. Now, this is a real problem, and it is quite sad, to be honest. The absence of regional fighters from the UFC means it is more difficult for those like Wehbi to pursue opportunities. Ahead of fight, or sometimes almost on the day of the fight, Wehbi has to work up to 8 hours a day and train for at least 3 or 4 hours. It's not the training that's the problem, he says. It's the recovery process. Now, what's wrong here is promoters overestimate the potential profit from fights, run out of funds, and ultimately disappear. 2 examples for you. Amman-based MMA promotion Desert Force abruptly halted operations in 2017 with no prior notice, just weeks ahead of a scheduled event, leaving fighters with no contracts, while Beirut-based Phoenix Fighting Championship has been liquidated now. Marketing is a huge problem. Full-time training and international promotions to Middle East fighters would not only boost their performance, but also increase the popularity of MMA in the Arab world, which is much needed. So except for a handful, you don't really see a lot of MMA fighters living a similar life like, say, a football, tennis, or cricket athlete. But at least the UFC is trying hard to promote the sport and the athletes here. UFC promotes local events through digital platforms like Fight Pass on its mobile app, and increasingly invites global fighters to visit and train at its $14 million, 2,700 square feet UFC Performance Institute in Vegas, or sister facility in Shanghai. But the UFC alone is not capable of hosting the number of events needed to sustain the profitable MMA industry here in the Middle East. So all I'm trying to ask right now is, where are all you local promoters at? These fighters really need you right now. Well, we will continue bringing to you updates on this story and many more from this region. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course, like, follow and share this video.